Take a moment to reflect. Why is it that as intelligence deepens, individuals often withdraw into themselves? Why do the most brilliant minds frequently find comfort not in bustling crowds but in serene solitude? Is it possible that what we perceive as social engagement feels like a hidden burden for some? What if, instead of loneliness, solitude offers liberation? In this video, we'll unpack a profound truth about human nature, articulated by philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, a thinker renowned for his unflinching insights. This discussion isn't intended for everyone. It's for those who often feel a sense of discomfort in social settings, who perceive themselves as outsiders, and who derive greater meaning from solitude than from raucous gatherings. We will explore the reasons why truly intelligent individuals often turn away from social life, not from a desire to avoid people, but from a clearer understanding of social dynamics. Be sure to stay with us until the end. The final revelation might transform your perception of solitude. It's the most significant insight, and it's worth your attention. Before we begin, I invite you to support this channel. If you appreciate depth over superficiality, truth over comfort, and self-awareness over social conformity, please hit that like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever felt more true to yourself in solitude? Your experiences might resonate with others. Let's cultivate a space for thinkers like you. Let's start with Schopenhauer's initial stark observation. He asserted that most socializing is, at best, a distraction, and at worst, a dilution of the self. He believed that the average individual lives in a constant state of noise, not just audible noise, but mental clutter, filled with gossip, social comparisons, trivial exchanges, and endless obligations. In contrast, the thinker, the individual who pauses to observe and reflect, realizes that this noise is not enriching, but enervating. Imagine being an artist striving to create a masterpiece, only to be interrupted every few minutes. Check out this event. Did you hear about what happened? How much of your creative vision would survive such distractions? Schopenhauer wasn't making unfounded claims. He observed a recurring pattern. Some of the most profound thinkers, writers, scientists, and artists often withdrew from public life, not out of disdain for others, but to safeguard their inner world. From Newton's reclusive brilliance to Kafka's somber isolation, from Nietzsche's quietude in the Alps to Emily Dickinson's secluded haven, solitude has always been the fertile ground where genius flourishes. Why is this the case? Solitude removes the necessity of putting on masks. In social contexts, we continually alter our words, tone, and behavior to align with those around us, often unconsciously. We become fragmented, reflecting the expectations of others. Alone, however, we can simply be ourselves, which, for the intelligent individual, whose inner life often bears more richness than the external world, is a restoration. Schopenhauer famously stated that the less intelligent a person is, the less mysterious existence appears to them. To the superficial mind, life may seem clear-cut, and entertainment is sufficient. Yet, for the profound thinker, life is filled with contradictions, suffering, beauty, and absurdity. These are rarely topics for casual conversation, and the struggle to engage in meaningful dialogue within a superficial world can lead to a retreat, not out of disdain, but exhaustion. You might wonder, isn't social connection essential for happiness? It depends on the quality of those connections. Schopenhauer argued that most people aren't seeking truth or meaning in others. They're looking for validation, distraction, or ego strokes. For him, such interactions feel hollow. He regarded solitude not as deprivation, but as enhancement. A genius resembles an eagle soaring alone. Perhaps you've experienced that feeling of isolation in a crowded room, not from indifference toward others, but because the conversation never pierces the depths where your thoughts reside. Conversely, in solitude, whether with a book, in nature, or lost in reflection, you feel a connection to something vast, eternal, and meaningful. Herein lies the paradox. Those who engage in deep thought often feel more aligned with the universe in solitude than in society. This does not imply relationships lack value. For the genuinely intelligent individual, relationships should be rooted in mutual growth, authenticity, and a shared quest for truth, not mere convenience or fun. Such connections are rare, making solitude a preferable companion until they manifest. Let me ask you, when was the last time a conversation left your soul feeling acknowledged? When did you leave a gathering feeling more whole instead of fragmented? Schopenhauer's candidness resonates because it reflects an unspoken reality. Much of our social life is mere pretense, a distraction from genuine self-awareness. Thus, astute individuals often begin to withdraw, not to flee from humanity, but to better understand it in themselves. Their retreat is sacred. If you've ever felt guilty for needing alone time, for declining invites, or for feeling out of place on social media, consider this your permission to stop apologizing. It could simply mean your mind values something deeper. To Schopenhauer, solitude isn't a retreat from life. It's preparation to live according to one's own values. So what role does social life play in Schopenhauer's worldview? To grasp this, we need to consider his understanding of human nature. He was not a romantic. He believed that at the core of human endeavors lies an unyielding will, a blind and relentless drive to survive, reproduce, and dominate. This primal force influences our instincts, behaviors, relationships, and societal structures. In this light, social life often resembles a battleground for ego and validation rather than a realm of connection. For most, socializing serves survival, building alliances, signaling worth, finding partners, or asserting dominance. Schopenhauer believed that those who transcend these basic instincts and question the nature of existence will inevitably feel alienated from such games, not out of arrogance, but from a position of detachment. Imagine standing in a crowd where the conversations feel like a language you barely understand. The exchanges lack meaning and resonate as hollow. That's the sensation many intelligent individuals experience in ordinary social interactions, not from superiority, but due to a disconnect between depth and superficiality. This discomfort intensifies with increased self-awareness. As one becomes more self-aware, the tolerance for inauthentic engagements wanes. While clever individuals adapt to blend in, the truly wise often withdraw, not in rebellion, but as an act of self-preservation. Schopenhauer poignantly articulated that the more substance a person possesses internally, the less they seek from others. With a rich inner life filled with thoughts, passions, and creativity, superficial interactions become unbearable. You no longer seek companionship to fill a void. Instead, you find solace in solitude to protect your mind. This explains why so many intellectuals gravitate towards philosophy, music, literature, and art, not just as pastimes, but as essential lifelines. These endeavors allow the soul to express itself freely, without interruption or distortion. However, embracing this journey isn't without its challenges. For the intellectually inclined, solitude is nourishing, yet it may appear to the outside world as coldness or arrogance. Friends might wonder why you don't socialize more, and family might fret about your well-being. Society may even label you as antisocial, but the reality is that intelligent individuals may thrive, be more grounded, and feel more alive in solitude than many do in their social encounters. Let's not forget Schopenhauer himself led a largely introspective life. He found social interactions exhausting, opting instead for books, nature walks, writing, and reflection. His pessimism stemmed from clarity rather than bitterness. He understood the suffering woven into human existence and recognized that seeing clearly often entails deep sorrow. Once we pierce through the illusions, the trivial conversations, and shallow motivations, returning to a previous, less aware state becomes nearly impossible. In that moment of seeking truth, silence, and authenticity, this isn't born from brokenness, but from awakening. Let's pause and reflect. How much time do you spend with people who truly see you, not just the surface, but your essence? How often can you express your truth without needing to translate it for others? If it's infrequent, perhaps your solitude is not a flaw, but a sign of inner alignment. Schopenhauer viewed solitude as the domain of the exceptional, not merely in terms of societal or intellectual success, but in terms of inner independence. Individuals who are emotionally self-sufficient and intellectually curious tend to thrive in solitude because they are full, needing neither constant connection nor validation. However, it's crucial to clarify that solitude is distinct from isolation. Schopenhauer did not advocate for nihilism or misanthropy. Instead, he promoted deeper, more meaningful engagement with life, starting with oneself. His perspective suggested that the more intelligent a person becomes, the lonelier the path can feel. Increased self-awareness often leads to a diminished capacity to relate to the masses. Yet, this alignment with one's true self liberates one from societal expectations, a paradox of experiencing less connection while gaining more meaning. Fewer people often equate to deeper peace, and within this paradox lies a semblance of wisdom. Schopenhauer regarded solitude not as emptiness, but as space. Space for the soul to thrive, the mind to engage, and the spirit to flourish. He considered abandoning social life not a tragedy, but a deliberate turn inward toward a life of self-discovery and philosophical clarity. Consider what you have learned during quiet moments, who you have become when alone. Would you trade that depth for shallow companionship? Would you exchange self-awareness for social acceptance? Many would, but perhaps you would not, and perhaps that's why you're here. You seek not noise, but truth. Schopenhauer would argue that's precisely why you find it hard to fit in. Let's delve further. Schopenhauer's philosophy offers not just insight into the abandonment of social life, but also reveals what emerges from that withdrawal. Solitude is not a passive state, it is an active liberation. In solitude, we can strip away the layers of illusion that society imposes upon us. One of the greatest misconceptions of social life, according to Schopenhauer, is the belief in the need for others to complete us, to find happiness through their approval or companionship. He called this the folly of dependence, leading many into cycles of disappointment and self-betrayal. The wise, however, redirect their search inward. He famously stated that truth goes through three stages: ridicule, violent opposition, and ultimately, acceptance as self-evident. The same can be said of solitude. It is mocked, feared, and finally recognized as essential. Let's explore how this unfolds in real life. Young, intelligent individuals often feel out of place. As children, they may be introspective, observant, or sensitive, not caught up in popularity games. Instead of seeking constant engagement, they gravitate towards quiet wonder and deep contemplation, often lost in imagination. As they mature, this difference becomes more apparent. School feels tedious, small talk grates on their nerves, and peer groups revolve around superficialities. The pressure to conform mounts, leading many gifted minds to suppress their depth to fit in. Eventually, some stop trying, marking a pivotal turning point. They cease attending events out of obligation, no longer pretending interest in unfulfilling topics, and decline draining invitations. Instead, they retreat, not into despair, but into self-reflection. In this retreat, a rare confrontation with the self occurs. In solitude, there's no audience to impress, just silence, allowing for self-discovery. In this stillness, we can confront our fears, hopes, vulnerabilities, and strengths. This confrontation can be daunting, prompting many to flee, but for the intellectually inclined, it marks the first step towards mastery of self. This mirrors the experiences of numerous prominent thinkers. Friedrich Nietzsche, for instance, viewed solitude not as punishment, but as a sacred duty, arguing that the higher you soar, the smaller you seem to those who cannot fly. For both Nietzsche and Schopenhauer, solitude was the price of truth. Solitude does more than reveal the self. It unveils the world in ways society cannot. Stepping back from social distractions allows for observation rather than participation. You begin to notice patterns in behavior, culture, and politics, and begin questioning them. Why do we yearn for validation? Why does silence evoke fear? Why is distraction celebrated while stillness is vilified? These inquiries emerge in stillness, allowing for a deeper understanding of both oneself and the world. Schopenhauer emphasized that the greatest folly is sacrificing health for any other form of happiness, not just physical health, but mental and spiritual well-being protected through solitude. Every time you compromise that well-being for social engagements that misalign with your true self, you deplete your life force. However, this realization comes with a heavy burden. Once you've embraced solitude and seen the world through awakened eyes, ignorance becomes increasingly intolerable. Disconnection doesn't arise from disdain for the world, but from comprehension of its complexities, which often brings pain. You begin to recognize how often people deceive themselves for acceptance, how many conversations serve merely to fill the silence, and how many relationships are built on distraction. This realization can be both sobering and liberating. You no longer desire what you once did. Your craving for approval dissipates, leading to self-sovereignty and wholeness. Schopenhauer proposed that this is the genuine reward of solitude, not just peace, but an inner strength, not dominance over others, but mastery over oneself. Reflect on when you feel most alive. Is it while performing for others or during moments of quiet contemplation? In deep thought rather than fragmented conversation? Many individuals are not designed for relentless interaction. They're built for insight, observation, and creation. Tragically, many fail to recognize this, spending years perceiving their need for solitude as a flaw when it may actually be their calling. For Schopenhauer, solitude nurtures true self-discovery. Everything else is compromise. This is why he frequently addressed the loneliness of the thinker, not to glorify suffering, but to highlight its importance. Wisdom requires the courage to face oneself, to interrogate doubts, to grapple with truth, and to endure the silence until it reveals its insights. If you're on this journey and feel drawn to solitude more than the crowd, understand this. You're not broken. You're evolving. The final revelation which will reshape your perspective is forthcoming. We've explored how solitude is not merely an escape, but a deliberate choice. We've uncovered how intelligent individuals like Schopenhauer often step back from social life, not out of arrogance, but in search of something deeper. But what is the ultimate truth that makes this journey not only bearable, but necessary? It is this: the highest form of self-realization occurs in solitude, not amid applause between conversations, or even in love, but in the raw stillness of one's own mind, free from external distractions. In solitude, there is no one to deceive, no mask to don, no stage to perform upon, only you. This reality is uncomfortable. Many resist it throughout their lives. Solitude forces you to confront ignored truths, suppressed feelings, and drowned out thoughts. For those courageous enough to embrace it, this deep introspection becomes a gateway to enlightenment. Schopenhauer believed that the world is fundamentally driven by blind will, that suffering is woven into life itself. Yet he also asserted that through detachment, art, philosophy, and solitude, we could rinse ourselves of that suffering, stepping outside the cycle, if only for fleeting moments. And here's the twist. For Schopenhauer, solitude isn't merely a refuge. It's a form of spiritual defiance. Choosing to be alone, to reject constant validation, to create solely for the sake of creation, to seek truth amidst a world saturated with distractions. This act itself is revolutionary. An individual who embraces solitude is not escaping from life. They are elevating it, selecting meaning over comfort, clarity over popularity, and freedom over belonging. Once this choice is made, the world will attempt to pull you back in, tempting you with noise, applause, and hollow promises of connection. But you'll recognize the distinction, having sampled the nourishing silence. You've experienced a stillness that demands nothing but simply exists. Let's reflect once more. What discoveries have you made in solitude? Have you gained clarity about who you are, what you value, and what you refuse to accept? If the answer is affirmative, even partially, realize you are on a path walked by Schopenhauer, Nietzsche, Jung, and countless other profound thinkers before you. You are reclaiming your inner life. And this act represents the greatest form of personal empowerment. But solitude doesn't only sharpen the mind. It opens the heart to the universe, to eternity, to the divine. When you exit the crowd for the quiet, something remarkable unfolds. You begin to discern what is real, not what's trending, not what's expected, but what is genuine. Life becomes less about accumulation and more about realization, less about the quantity of friends and more about the depth of self-awareness. You cease comparing, competing, and pretending. You become grounded, whole, and simple, It is from this foundation of self-possession and clarity that you can re-enter the world on your own terms, not as a puppet of societal demands, but as a contributor. You no longer search the world for affirmation. You give from an overflow of wisdom derived from your solitude. This is the ultimate paradox. The more you embrace solitude, the more impactful your presence becomes upon your return. You don't speak merely to fill silence. You speak with intention. You no longer seek connection out of fear, but rather from a place of abundance. You stop being a passenger in society, transforming into the author of your own life story. This is the experience of the inspiteful soul. Yes, it's lonely, but it's a sacred solitude, akin to that of mountain climbers, poets, and sages. It is the loneliness of those determined to refuse a half-life, preferring to confront silence rather than lose their essence in chaos. If you identify with this feeling, know that you are not alone. You are part of a hidden lineage, a quiet brotherhood or sisterhood. From Schopenhauer to you, the path of the awakened is narrow, but it is yours to walk. Carry yourself with pride. When the world inquires why you don't participate more, respond with the quiet confidence of one who knows. Because I have already found what you are still seeking. If this video resonates with you, take a moment, not for us, but for others on a similar journey, to leave a comment, share your story, and let them know they are not alone, not broken, and not antisocial, but awakening. Like, subscribe, and share with someone who carries this truth within them. Together, we will cultivate a space where thoughtfulness is standard rather than a rarity. Remember, solitude is not your weakness. It is your strength. It's not a burden, it's a gift. And in that sacred silence, everything takes root. Thank you for being here.